Tiwari's entire refrain is built on layers and layers of such misrepresentations, convoluted logic, and plain fibs. It would take all day if I undertake to deconstruct the elaborate slander. So, let me take up some basic concepts which give us an idea of the times and help fit facts correctly in the picture. Because one can endlessly keep perpetuating misconceptions and prejudice. The alternative is to gain a perspective with which to understand and learn from past events. The first one is the term leftist, which Tiwari uses abundantly to show Bose as a communist. You will find Subhash Bose also emphatically identified himself as a leftist. But the left, center, and right political positions in those days were different from today, as in right representing the Hindu nationalists, the center the secularists, and the left the communists. Left in those days denoted the faction, especially those within the Congress, that stood for aggressive means of winning the rights of Indians and ultimately freedom, colloquially known as Karamdal. So all of these, Lal, Bal, Pal, Chittaranjan Das, Vittal Bhai Patel, Motilal Nehru, Narsimha, Chintaman Kelkar, etc., were known as leftists or even extremists. It was these people who were known as the Swarajists and who eventually formed the separate Swaraj Party. In Subhash Bose's own words, in the present political phase of Indian life, leftism means anti-imperialism. A genuine anti-imperialist is one who believes in undiluted independence, not Mahatma Gandhi's substance of independence, as the political objective, and in uncompromising national struggle as the means for attaining it. He described those with a softer approach, the Naram Dal, as those prepared for a deal with imperialism. About the difference in their aims, he writes, the goal of the Congress as defined in the Constitution had been self-government within the British Empire. This had antagonized all those congressmen who believed in the severance of the British connection or who refused to be tied down to the empire. To enable the left-wingers to return to the Congress fold, the goal of the Congress was declared to be Swaraj, which means literally self-rule, and it was left to individual congressmen to define Swaraj in their own way. Mr. Gandhi, however, defined Swaraj to mean self-government within the empire if possible, and outside if necessary. So Gandhi and his followers had no mission of independence at all. That's why the parties Swaraj and Forward Bloc were formed. Communists were a different class of politicians altogether. CPI was established in 1920s. Its leaders were Satchidanand Vishnu Ghate, Manavendranath Roy, etc. And true to the Marxist doctrine, they tried their violent revolutionary means to upstage the British, but not out of nationalist sentiment. They all had these extraterritorial loyalties towards Russia, various communist leaders abroad, and their ideology of the nation. Bose repudiated communism in the clearest terms in his elaborately laid out criticisms of communism. He wrote, to introduce fresh cleavage within our ranks by talking openly of class war and working for it appears to me at the present moment to be a crime against nationalism. To what straits we may be reduced by a malassimilation of Karl Marx and Bakunin becomes manifest when we come across a certain class of Indian laborites or communists, if you call them so, who openly advocate the use of British or foreign cloth on the plea of internationalism. If I had the remotest intention of becoming a Bolshevik agent, I would have jumped at the offer made and taken the first available boat to Europe. If I succeeded in recouping my health, I could then have joined the gay band who trot about from Paris to Leningrad, talking of world revolution and emitting blood and thunder in their utterances. But I have no such intention or desire. So Bose was well aware of the folly of socialist casteist ideas, which other Indian leaders and writers are till now easily deceived by, and have been inserting permanent fissures within Indian society. Subhash Chandra Bose was very clear in stating that the communist model of internationalism was incompatible with India, because it is removed from her spiritual ethos, and that in India, a national awakening is in most cases heralded by a religious reformation and a cultural renaissance. There was an incident during Bose's arrest in October 1924. The British wanted to keep him in longer and remove him to a far off place, since they saw him as dangerous. They therefore tried to devise stronger charges against him to defame him, and among these was the charge of corresponding with communist leaders abroad. Bose was forced to file a defamation petition through his brother, vehemently denying the charges. So, association with communists was actually seen as an ignominious circumstance. Subsequently, the communists have consistently tried to appropriate the revolutionary nationalist legacy. Characters of the Indian revolutionary movement are portrayed in their writings as communists. For example, Surya Sen. There's a movie on Master Surya Sen in which Indian revolutionaries are shown giving the slogan Kranti Ki Jai Ho, whereas this was never the revolutionaries' call. They were entirely motivated by devotion for the motherland, and their cry was Vande Mataram. Then Bhagat Singh, Jugantar, the 1857 mutiny, they portray them all as communist movements and personalities, and Subhash Chandra Bose, which is funny considering that these communists used to abuse Subhash Bose in the profanest terms in their publications, which I am not reproducing here for the sake of brevity. But they hated the Indian National Army. They were West loyalists. They snooped on INA operatives and acted as British informants in the war period. And the right-wing dopes. They actually advance the leftist narrative and deprecate their own icons. They are a brainless and petty lot, completely lacking perspective, and only intent on one-upmanship against one another and self-promotion. There is a concept in Silicon Valley. When startups want to raise funds, they project their technology as disruptive technology to get the attention of venture capitalists and the HNIs. This is what these so-called scholars do, come up with sensational theories to grab the attention of people, and unfortunately these are readily lapped up by a section that subscribes to these prejudicial ideas. Tiwari refers to Bose all through in his litany as a Marxist secularist. The reason: Subhash Bose founded the Forward Bloc. This is again a case of anachronist distortion. Truth is, Forward Bloc was formed around 4 years after the Swaraj Party had disintegrated, in the time when Bose was in Mandalay prison, and soon after Chittaranjan Das died. Bose subsequently found it impossible to come to terms with Gandhian tyranny and had to leave the Congress. But like the Swaraj Party, Forward Bloc was a part of the Congress and represented the more fiery and forceful elements among them. It was known as Forward Bloc of the Indian National Congress. So, when did this change? In February 1946, when a Forward Bloc Workers' Assembly was held in Jabalpur, and at this point, Indian communists started infiltrating the party. The session resulted in a declaration. Forward Bloc is a socialist party, accepting the theory of class struggle in its fullest implications, and a program of revolutionary mass action for the attainment of socialism leading to a classless society. This was a marked departure from Subhash Bose's policy and vision. No wonder this did not go down well with the Swarajist nationalists, and the party split, forming into two factions. Forward Bloc Subhashist, the nationalist faction led by Ramchandra Sakharam Ruikar and Sardul Singh Kavishar, and Forward Bloc Marxist, the communist faction led by Shil Bhadrayagi and Kishore Narsingh Joglekar. Thereafter, in February 1948, a party national council meet was held in Varanasi, in which it was decided to sever all ties with Indian National Congress. This was actually a reaction to a Congress decision earlier that year to expel all dissenting tendencies within the Congress. Thereafter, a lot of splits happened, especially after Sharad Bose died. But basically, the leftist Marxist character of Forward Bloc, in its various permutations and combinations and avatars, was acquired over a couple of decades after Subhash and Sharad Bose's deaths.